My son believed that if he took my house, my savings, and my company, he would finally have everything. He stood in front of me, holding the keys to the life I had spent 40 years building. Then he smiled and said, "You're nothing without this, Mom." I didn't argue. I simply picked up one small box and walked away because there was one thing he could never steal. Not with money, not with lies, not even with the law. And when he finally discovered what it was, he fell to his knees, crying. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, if someone took everything you owned, what is the one thing they could never take from you? Now, let me tell you the story of how my son took everything, but still lost the only thing that truly mattered. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 63 years old. For nearly 40 years, I believe success wasn't measured by the money you kept, but by the future you gave your children. My husband James and I started with almost nothing. A tiny apartment, an old pickup truck, and a dream. We worked 2 jobs each, saved every dollar, skipped vacations, celebrated anniversaries with homemade dinners. Slowly, that dream became reality. We bought our first home, started a small construction company, and raised our only son, Ethan. From the day he was born, everything we did was for him. When he wanted to attend the best college, we mortgaged our house. When he wanted to start his own business, we invested our retirement savings. When his first business failed, we helped him again. Every time he fell, we were there to catch him. I never thought one day he would become the reason I fell. After my husband passed away, the loneliness was overwhelming. Ethan visited often. He hugged me, cooked dinner, told me, "Dad would want me to take care of you." Those words brought me comfort. I trusted him completely. So when he offered to help manage my finances, I agreed. He paid my bills, handled my bank accounts, organized my paperwork. It felt like a son taking care of his mother. At least, that's what I believed. Months passed. Then little things started changing. Letters stopped arriving. Bank statements disappeared. When I asked, Ethan always had an answer. "Everything's online now, Mom. You don't need to worry." I smiled. "I know. I trust you." Looking back, those 4 words were the biggest mistake of my life. One Saturday morning, Ethan knocked on my bedroom door. He looked nervous. "Mom, we need to talk." My heart skipped. "Is everything okay?" He nodded. "Actually, it's great news. I found a buyer for the house." I laughed. "What house?" He looked at me, confused. "This one." The smile disappeared from my face. "What are you talking about?" "It's already done. The paperwork is finished." I stared at him. "I never agreed to sell my house." He avoided my eyes. "You signed the documents." "No, I didn't." He slowly placed a folder on the kitchen table. I opened it. There it was. My name. My signature. On every page. But it wasn't mine. I looked up. "Ethan, what have you done?" He finally met my eyes and quietly said, "Mom, you don't need this house anymore. You'll thank me someday." At that moment, I realized something terrifying. My son hadn't just taken my home. He had taken everything I thought I knew about him. I couldn't sleep that night. Every room in the house reminded me of James. The old piano in the corner, the family photographs on the wall, the porch where we drank coffee every Sunday morning. By sunrise, I had packed one small suitcase, not because I wanted to leave, because I had no choice. At exactly 9 o'clock, a moving truck pulled into the driveway. Behind it, a black luxury SUV. Ethan stepped out wearing an expensive suit. A young couple followed him. They smiled politely. "We're excited to move in." I forced myself to smile back. They weren't my enemies. They believed they had bought the house legally. Ethan walked toward me. "Mom, I've arranged a nice apartment for you." You'll be more comfortable there. I looked at him. This was your father's home. This is where we raised you. He sighed impatiently. It's just a house. Those 4 words broke my heart. Because to him, it had become a piece of property. To me, it was a lifetime of memories. I picked up my suitcase. Before leaving, I turned around one last time. I quietly whispered, "Goodbye, James." As I reached my car, my phone rang. The screen displayed a name I hadn't seen in months. Michael Harrison, my husband's lawyer. I answered. "Margaret, I heard about the house." My voice trembled. "It's over, Michael." There was a long silence. Then he asked one question. "Did Ethan tell you about the safety deposit box?" I froze. "What safety deposit box?" Michael sounded surprised. "James never told you?" 2 years before he passed away, he asked me to prepare something. He said, "If Margaret ever loses the house, tell her to open the box immediately." My heart started pounding. I had completely forgotten. Years earlier, James had insisted we rent a safety deposit box at the bank. He told me, "Someday, you'll understand why." I never asked another question. Now, I finally understood. An hour later, Michael met me outside the bank. He held the key in his hand. Together, we opened the box. Inside, there was only one sealed envelope. Across the front, in James's familiar handwriting, were the words, "For Margaret. Open only if someone betrays your trust." Tears filled my eyes. Even after all these years, my husband was still protecting me. Michael carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and another document. The moment Michael read it, his eyes widened. He looked at me in disbelief. "Margaret, Ethan has no idea this exists." I leaned closer. "What is it?" Michael smiled for the first time that day. "It's the one thing he could never take from you." Just then, Michael closed the folder, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "Tomorrow morning, we're going to pay your son a visit." The next morning, Michael and I drove back to my house. For the first time, it no longer felt like home. Moving trucks were parked outside. Workers carried furniture through the front door. The young couple who had bought the house waved politely. They still believed everything was legal. Ethan stood on the porch, smiling. The moment he saw me, he laughed. "Mom, I thought we'd already said goodbye." I looked at him calmly. I didn't come to argue. I came to hear the truth. He folded his arms. "The truth is, you lost." Michael stepped forward. "Actually, that's exactly why we're here." He held up the sealed envelope. Ethan frowned. "What's that supposed to be?" Michael smiled. "The last thing your father ever prepared." For the first time, the confidence disappeared from Ethan's face. "My father?" Michael nodded. "He left instructions. And today, we're following them." Everyone gathered in the living room. The buyers, the real estate agent. Even 2 neighbors quietly stepped inside. Michael placed the envelope on the dining table. He carefully opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter from James. Michael began reading. "If you're hearing these words, then someone has chosen greed over family." The room became completely silent. Michael continued. "Margaret spent her entire life protecting this family. If anyone betrays her, they must first face the truth." Ethan shifted nervously. "Can we get to the point?" Michael looked directly at him. I was just about to. He removed another document from the envelope. It was notarized, stamped, signed. He placed it on the table. "This is the original Family Protection Trust." The buyers looked confused. "What does that mean?" Michael explained. 5 years ago, James legally transferred ownership of this home into a protected family trust. The trust clearly states, this property cannot be sold without Margaret's personal written consent and my signature as trustee. Ethan grabbed the sales contract. "But I have her signature." Michael calmly placed a second document beside it. A forensic handwriting expert examined those signatures yesterday. They are not Margaret's. They are forgeries. The room fell silent. The real estate agent slowly stepped backward. The buyer stared at Ethan in disbelief. So, you never owned the right to sell this house? Michael answered, You can't do that. Before anyone could speak, his phone rang. He answered. Within seconds, his hands began to shake. It was his bank. The funds from the sale had been frozen pending investigation. The business loan he had been counting on was canceled. His investors had withdrawn. Everything he had built collapsed in a single phone call. He slowly looked at me. There were tears in his eyes. For the first time, he wasn't looking at me as a business obstacle. He was looking at me as his mother. His voice cracked. Mom, I've lost everything. I looked at him quietly. Then I said the one sentence he never expected to hear. No, Ethan. You lost it the moment you chose greed over family. The room was silent. Ethan stood there, holding his phone. His hands were trembling. The buyers quietly walked away. The real estate agent lowered her head. No one defended him. No one celebrated. Everything he thought he had won was slipping away. I slowly picked up my suitcase. For the first time, it didn't feel heavy anymore. As I walked toward the front door, Ethan's voice stopped me. Mom! I turned around. Tears streamed down his face. I'm sorry. I know that isn't enough. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't know how I became this person. I looked into his eyes. For the first time in months, I didn't see greed. I saw fear and regret. Michael quietly closed his briefcase. Before leaving, he looked at Ethan. Your father left one final message. He unfolded the last page of James' letter. The room fell silent. Michael began reading. Ethan, if you're hearing these words, it means you've made the biggest mistake of your life. Money can build a house, but only love can build a home. If you ever choose wealth over your mother, you will lose far more than property. Michael folded the letter. No one spoke. 3 months later, the investigation ended. The forged documents were declared invalid. The sale was canceled. The house legally remained mine. Because Ethan admitted everything, cooperated with investigators, and compensated everyone affected. The court gave him probation instead of prison. He also completed hundreds of hours of community service. Not because justice needed revenge, but because every choice has consequences. One rainy evening, there was a knock on my front door. I opened it. Ethan stood there. No expensive suit. No luxury watch. No expensive car. Just a small paper bag in his hands. Inside were my old house keys, the family photo album, and one handwritten letter. He looked at me. I spent my whole life chasing what Dad built. But I forgot. He wasn't trying to leave me money. He was trying to leave me values. I understand that now. I don't expect you to trust me again. I just hope one day you'll let me earn it. I looked at my son. Then at the old oak tree James had planted the year Ethan was born. It was still standing. Storms had bent its branches, but its roots remained strong. I smiled gently. Ethan, you took my house. You took my peace. You almost destroyed this family. But there was one thing you could never take, he whispered. What was it? I stepped closer. My integrity, my faith, and my ability to forgive. Tears filled his eyes. I opened the front door. Come inside. But understand this. Forgiveness is given in a moment. Trust is earned over a lifetime. He nodded. I'll spend the rest of my life earning it. A year later, the house was full of laughter again. Not because the past had been erased, but because the truth had been accepted. Above the fireplace hung one framed sentence from James's final letter. The greatest inheritance isn't what you leave your children, it's the character you teach them. Every time Ethan looked at those words, He remembered the day he thought he had won, only to discover that the most valuable things in life can never be stolen.